Scott Wilder's in the House, President and CEO, Mississippi Economic Council. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. Good to see you, sir.
Good to see you. Did you take a deep breath after the sine die and say, take a day off?
I got to take about a half day off and then right back to work, getting ready for next Thursday with our annual meeting. But yes, it was good to finally have that one behind us, and very, very interesting session on a lot of fronts. But at the end of the day, I think we got a lot of good things accomplished.
Well, look, thank you for coming in, because there are so many different things in all areas, and one of the things that we tried to keep up with was the bills that will deal with workforce development, economic growth, and everything else. And I appreciate you coming in, but. And I would imagine anything that did pass is probably going to be effective July the 1st. But do you have a little review of any bills that are pertinent to that?
Well, there were two or three things, and we'll go ahead and start with workforce, because that is probably one of the most important things. I was driving in this morning listening to your segment where you had Charles Barkley talking about there are only 400 players in the NBA, and everybody wants to be one of them. And I get that. But what we've got to do is we've got to figure out those that aren't going to make the NBA, what are they going to do? And I think that's one of the things that we've been very fortunate over the last couple of years in establishing what is called our career coaching program through Accelerate Mississippi, our Office of Workforce Development. And Ryan Miller and his team continue to do a tremendous job in building that. Well, last year they actually allocated $8 million through ARPA funding, which is one-time funding, for that program. Well, this year that we were looking at it possibly going up as much as 16, but where we ended was at $12 million. The good thing is it's now part of the general fund appropriation, meaning it's a more permanent source of funding year over year. And we're seeing it. We're seeing the impact of this already. Students understanding, where's that line that matches what they really want to do versus what they're very good at doing, and trying to get them into a variety of fields. Because what we've learned in Mississippi's economy is there's always going to be a need for your your doctoral professionals, your doctors, your lawyers, your other professionals, but there's also a need for our career technical professionals as well. And we've got so many pathways that we can put students on for them to be successful, for them to make really good dollars, help improve our economy overall, but more importantly, improve the quality of life of those students. And that's what we really are focused on. So we're very excited about that. The other part was there was some changes made to how the office is actually funded, which again gives a little bit more of a permanent feel for how the administrative side of it is, which opens up more dollars for workforce programs, for training programs. So, really, really good on that front. So that was one of the biggest things that we had happen this session.
The way things have changed over the years. In many years ago, you might have a student who was not qualified for that particular job, maybe not even trainable for that particular job. But the things about showing up on time, work ethic, yes, sir, and yes, sir, no, sir, all of those things. And that's just something that's lacking in a lot of kids today. And it's a shame before we even get to are you trainable, you have to kind of correct that situation.
We do. I mean, we, as you know, Paul, we go out every year into the communities. This year we're focusing on small communities across the state and looking at the impact that they're having on our economy. And one of the questions that we've asked over the years, and we're asking it this year, is what are the skills that are still hurting your ability to be successful? What we call, I guess, employability skills. That's soft skills, digital skills, the things that you're needing. Durable skills is another term for it, but it's all what you're talking about. Is the understanding of what is the requirement. You've got to show up, but not just show up, but show up on time. And how do you do that? So it still comes up as something it's an issue that they feel we have to be finding a way to address. So, I think there are a lot of programs out there that are starting to look at this. As we get into this process, I think that's one of the things that the career coaching program is going to help people understand. Okay, if this is the route you choose, here's what lay out the expectations so that they can understand what those are. And I think that's a big part of it. So I think it's one of those things that as this program continues to grow, as we continue to find a way to refine it and and help everybody understand what the purpose of the career coach is, particularly within the school systems. There's really something about this model that's very special. As you know, the model we're using in Mississippi was created by the Create Foundation in Northeast Mississippi, and it's they actually employ the career coaches and help work with the schools to place them, and then that way they're there for that one purpose. And I've been in a couple of national meetings with folks in the last couple of months. I'm chairing a national task force through our National Association of State Chambers looking at workforce development. And Mississippi's career coach program is getting a lot of attention because of the way it's structured. So we're very excited about the additional funding there. We're very excited about being able to add more coaches into our schools across the state. We're a little over half right now. Our goal is to get into every school as we go forward.
Where do they come from,
well,
Scott? I mean,
Create.
Who can be one?
Well, how it works is Create. The funding goes through Create. They then give grants to whether it be like a nonprofit foundation, like the Central Mississippi Planning Development is one of the groups that actually does the process of hiring and finding the coaches, putting them in place. We were down in Laurel. I guess a couple of weeks ago, the economic the Economic Development Authority and Chamber there are working with the career coaches. So I mean, it really is a lot of the local groups are working to make those connections into the schools, and in the places where the connection's being made in a strong way, it's really making a difference. So we're very excited about this possibility and growing it. And, it's like anything. It's this was the first year to take it to the scale that we took it. It was created, had it for several years, and again, the model they put was fantastic, and that's how when we did the legislation from the statewide perspective, we wanted to follow that. So what's going to happen, though, is just like with anything, it's going to take a couple of years. There's going to be a kink here and there, but I think overall we're headed in the right direction. This the potential for this program is absolutely incredible.
In every house that has a junior or senior around the proverbial kitchen table, this is a big topic. Whether they go to college, when they start getting to the 10th, 11th, certainly in the 12th grade, do they go to college? What do you want to do? Asking the kids, what would you like to do? And parents want them to succeed, number one. Number two, get out of the house. So
exactly.
Those two things. And I'm not real sure in some cases if number two is number one.
Well,
but anyway, are we getting to where we need to be as far as competitive, certainly in the southeastern region?
I think so, and I think it comes back to what you just said. When you think about what it is that what it is the student wants to do, and I think that the process also has to include the parents' understanding that we're talking about post-secondary education. What are you doing after high school? And that is what college is today. College can be a variety of things today. It doesn't necessarily have to be what everyone thinks is that traditional four-year route. Now, don't misunderstand me. Those are extremely important, and we have to have that. But there's so many other routes that can take you to the community college level, so many things they do. We have a community college system in this state that's incredible, particularly on the workforce side of things, and preparing students to move on to the next level with four-year colleges. But we have so many programs out there that really gives every one of our students an opportunity to succeed. And I think this is just, this was one of like I said, there were a lot of things that happened in this session, but this one probably stood out as the thing that meant the most for really moving us forward as a state.
Sometimes I think we are doing a little bit of a misnomer, but just let's say you do go directly into that job from a community college, or maybe not even a community college. You've done whatever you're going to do as carpentry or whatever it happens to be in the 10th and 11th grade, or as an intern, 11th and 12th grade. It doesn't preclude that you still have that four-year college that's available. You've got degrees that are available. It's not a yes or no answer on any of these things. It's flexible, but
that option will always exist.
Money,
You're right.
All right, more with Scott Waller coming up next. Wow, back with Scott Waller, and geez, that was a well-coordinated intro there, one way or the other. We were talking about a sundry of different things, but workforce development was number one. And I asked because you said you were talking to a lot of cohorts in other states too. What do we need? What do we need to do this year? What do we need to put together to solve the problem that we're having in the deficiencies?
Well, I think that we're headed in the right direction. I think that the key right now is when the Office of Workforce Development was created and put in place, and now I think it's actually Ryan Miller was hired as executive director 2 years ago, April of 2021. So a lot of work has taken place in just a short period of time to bring the staff up, get goals in place. I think now we just have to stay the course, and I think that's the key. And everybody understand that this is not an overnight process for us to create this office, to build it, but just in a 2-year time frame, the work that has taken place with the support that's happened out there. I mean, when I say support, there's a lot of support from groups like MEC. We've got a really strong working relationship with our partners over at the Manufacturing Association, John McKay and his team. There's a lot of support through Patrick Sullivan, who serves as the chair of the SWIB board. I think that the things that are starting to happen right now are going to pay long-term dividends. Yeah. And our legislative leadership understands this too. I think sometimes we all get a little bit, we all want it to happen yesterday, and that's our human nature. But I think if we step back and take a moment of what we've actually been able to accomplish in a very, very short period of time, that you already have people around the country talking about what's happening in Mississippi in terms of workforce, that's a big win for us as a state. And I think long term, it's going to be a big win for us as we continue to be able to show workforce is improving. And on top of that, we are putting the systems in place that's going to allow us to do it. And we still have work to do, particularly with the customized training and things of that nature. Yeah. But we're very committed to getting that done. And I think that's the reason it's going to work.
Scott, people hear us talking about this all the time. They said, well, what's the problem? But there's, and if you don't understand behind the scenes for so long, it's almost like trying to build an engine where everybody's separate and doing their own thing on the parts. It never comes together. The engine just never runs. You have to have that unity. You have to have that networking. You have to have that coordination. And when you have a state, it really is as long as we are, big as we are, that was not an easy thing. And certainly in this particular category where when you had some things going on, people just didn't want to share it with others. So it was a monumental task, and that was a large part that people don't understand, trying to bring this together to see where the deficiencies were, what could we do better, and it takes some time to get that done.
Exactly. I mean, there were some great things happening across the state. Unfortunately, it was kind of in silos, and when you start figuring out how to do it at a statewide level, I mean, just like taking the example that Create started with our career coaches and building that out across the state. It's the same process of what we want to do with all workforce development. So I think we're making great strides there, and I'm excited about what's ahead and the fact that there's a commitment to continue to fund this in a way that allows us to do some certain things, and then we'll look for how we can direct more and be better, more efficient with how we have the dollars coming in. And again, I mean, this is all MEC's role in this. Is I'm fortunate enough to serve on the executive committee of SWIB, and I'm fortunate enough to be able to go over and lobby for this type of issue at the Capitol, because we understand how important it is for our businesses that are members of MEC. But it's really something that we all have to be working on together. So it's a big step in the right direction. But I do believe, and a big part of what happened at the session this year.
Yeah. I do believe that Ryan is coming in this week. We haven't had him on in a while. I think he's on later part of this week. But the other part of that is this: after you get the engine running, you've got to sell it. So whatever it is, you've got to go into the schools, you've got to talk to the parents, you've got to talk to the educational, the administration, and get the word out there.
We do, and I think that's part of it. I think that's what we've got to look at, particularly from an economic development standpoint, is what's the whole picture. And workforce is the number one issue, but we also have other issues there. And I think that if you look at this legislative session, you saw a huge commitment over the last 2 or 3 years being made for infrastructure in this state. I mean, that's something MEC has pushed for since really 2015, 2016. And this year, in addition to the year-over-year funding that we are continuing to have in infrastructure, another $620 million of new dollars was put into to continue to repair and replace bridges, to fix our road systems throughout the state. And this year there was even some dollars set aside for intermodal, which is a big part of how you move goods. I mean, you make them, you got to move them. So I think that a lot of what we're seeing as a state is all of these issues that make a difference in economic development are really starting to come together. And, you know, it's workforce is going to be the driver, but we have to have all these other things in place as well. And I think that's where, you know, this session really stood out to me, is that when you see that type of commitment, because, Paul, I'll be honest with you, just a few years ago, we were struggling just to get much of anything for roads and bridges.
Yes.
And now when you see where we are today and what we've been able to accomplish, and it doesn't happen overnight, but look back over the last, you know, 6 or 7 years of where we were and where we are today. And now the next step is we want to continue to focus on finding a more sustainable source of revenue to continue this, and I think that's key. But you know, a lot of good things are happening there. We're focused on how do we have a good tax environment. We're focusing on how we make those things happen, and I think that's key for us as we move forward.
I held this up because it plays into what you were saying. Here's a news story on the WTVA. If you live in the Tupelo-Lee County area, you might have noticed nonstop development year after year. Tupelo has itself become the fastest-growing city in northeast Mississippi. No, this is the secondary story. I'm sorry. The other story was Highway 76 extension opens this morning in Etowah County. Mm-hmm. It's a new 4-lane segment. Highway 76 in Etowah County opens to the public this morning at 10 o'clock. So a couple of hours from now, and you can cut across from Red Bay, Alabama, directly to Highway 25 north of Fulton. So they're going to cut a lot of time off traveling in that area, but highways and byways, and when you start talking about it every single day, especially when we have interviews with any of the commissioners, we're getting some things done out there with the lottery money and with other appropriations.
A lot of really good things are happening, and that's what makes me feel good about the work that so many people have done to get us to this point. So I mean, it's just there are reasons to celebrate, and that's one of the things that we want to continue to focus on, and as we go forward, look into.
When have you been in communication with? We were talking about this yesterday, and I forgot the name of the new person that took Dr. Mayfield's position at community colleges.
Yeah, fortunately, Cale's been around a while. I've known Cale for a long time, so I mean, feel really excited about him being in that role. And I think that, again, as I said earlier, our community colleges do some great work. And I mean, that's one of the things that we want to focus on at our annual meeting next Thursday is how do we continue to increase educational attainment among our students in Mississippi, not primarily our students that are coming out of high school headed into college to help them complete whatever degree, associate's degree, industry certification, but even adults to come back in for additional education. Our community colleges are going to play a big role in that. So that's one of the panels that we're going to have on Thursday, the 20th at our annual meeting. Is that how does all that come together? Another thing we want to talk about is kind of what's the impact of child care on today's economy. So those are our 2 morning breakout sessions. But then it all kind of builds up to building our plenary session is going to look at building your bench strength. How do you have people in line to be leaders within your company, and particularly developing young professionals as we go forward? So those are our morning sessions. We've got a lot of good stuff, and it all kind of plays together with that. And then very special luncheon session that we've got is going to look at teamwork. How does what's the parallels between business and sports, and how does it bring people from diverse backgrounds together to be successful? We got Ole Miss Athletic Director Keith Carter, Jackson State women's basketball coach Tamika Reed, USM volleyball coach Jenny Hazelwood, and then former MSU quarterback Wayne Mackin, who is now with Entergy Mississippi. They're going to be talking about how does this kind of come together, the lessons learned that translates into success in the business world. So we're very excited. That's April 20th. We hope people can join us. MEC.ms has the information. It's not too late to sponsor. And we look forward, of course, of always having SuperTalk with us that morning at the program. So thank you for letting me come in and just plug that for a minute.
Sir.